All right. Greetings, everybody. This is the fifth and final webinar in our series on Employment is for Everyone. And today we're going to focus on bridging the gap and looking at job development and promoting diversity in the workplace. And we're going to have several presenters tonight, and they'll be introducing themselves as they come on. So again, little housekeeping. We have live ASL interpreters, and they have been spotlighted, so you should be able to see them. And live closed captioning is active. This webinar is being recorded. And as always, you can submit any written comments you have to cieinfo@avenuessls.org. And we just want to remind everyone that we do have recorded sessions that have been translated into Spanish, Farsi, also with American Sign Language, and Armenian. And if you have a little smartphone, you can scan the QR code down below, and that will take you to the link to sign up to view those videos. You will have some survey questions that you'll need to fill out before being granted access. Okay. And the webinar is being recorded. And this series of webinars is being offered thanks to a grant from the California Department of Developmental Services in collaboration with North LA County Regional Center. One of the requirements of the grant is that we administer a series of questions both before and after the webinars. So please complete our survey questions at the end of the webinar, as well as our follow-up questions that will be sent to you in, it shouldn't say November, it's actually going to be later April. So thanks in advance for completing these surveys. Your privacy will be protected in the responses. So just to summarize, we have provided, this will be the fifth in our series of webinars. And if you missed any, again, we should have these recordings edited and ready to replay for anyone that either missed some of them or if you want to share with others, focusing on competitive integrated employment and the paid internship program when we talk about employment is for everyone or work is for everyone. The first session focused on work is for everyone, raising expectations from age 3 to 73 and exploring the link between high parent expectations and successful employment outcomes. And our second webinar focused on increasing knowledge of competitive integrated employment and the paid internship program. Our third webinar focused on navigating and maintaining Social Security benefits, Medi-Cal, and other essential benefits while working. And our fourth webinar focused on finding a good job match and how to use both discovery and person-centered practices to identify job duty and environmental preferences while developing and assessing your skills and talents. And then today, we're going to be focusing on bridging the gap, job development strategies to promote diversity in the workplace, and how hiring workers with disabilities can improve morale and positive company outcomes. And as always, today we will have three people sharing their personal stories about how employment and internships have assisted them in their lives. So again, today we want to talk about bridging the gap and how to promote diversity in the workplace. So what are the benefits of hiring workers with disabilities? What do you say if you're a job developer or someone that's going into the community and approaching an employer to find out if they might have an opportunity for either yourself or someone that you support? So here are some of the benefits of hiring workers with disabilities. One, hiring people with disabilities can increase their profit margin. Okay. Two, hiring people with disability diversifies the company culture. And many businesses, many of the large businesses right now actually have in their mission statement that they will be promoting a diverse workforce. And we can help them do that by hiring people with abilities that may have a label of a disability. They can improve their diversity in their workforce. Hiring people with disabilities increases employee motivation and reduces turnover rates. And we're finding that by adding a person that has some support needs in employment or business situation, it can improve that company morale. And it helps out with coworkers, and people can have a more positive experience at work when their workforce is diverse. There's also a vast untapped market of talented people with disabilities who are looking for work. And also there are federal and state tax incentives for hiring people with disabilities. For example, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, or WOTC. And again, this comes from the Disability Inclusion Advantage through the 2018 Accenture research report. Something we've also heard during and while we're exiting this pandemic is from our Santa Clarita Valley Mayor's Committee on Employment in 2023. We asked businesses, what are you looking for in an employee? And what we found is that businesses are still really looking to gain more qualified workers into their workforce. And these are some of the things they said, which were a little bit eye-opening to us. They want people that are going to show up. They want people that are going to have good attendance. They want to make sure that if we're an agency that's supporting people with disabilities and assisting them to gain employment, that we have good follow-up and follow-through. They want to make sure that they hire workers that are on time. A couple employers said, we want people that have a pulse. They want people that are alive and willing and wanting to work. They want people and encourage people to be genuine, to be themselves. It says, be yourself. They enjoy having employees with character, people with a positive attitude that want to be there at work every day. They want people that have a willingness to learn. They value people that have education and schooling. They value people with a good disposition. And while employers would love to have people that have experience in their field, they also encouraged us to help people apply to positions, even if they don't have experience. Because they said, even if your experience does not match the job, pursue it anyhow. Now is a great opportunity to try new things, new jobs, and new job duties. And many of the employers realize that if they want to get a qualified employee and someone that's dependable and that wants to be there, that they are willing to provide that on-the-job training to assist people to learn and understand the job, even if they don't already have those skills. So where and how do we start our job search? So one of the questions we get a lot is, how do you assess a person's vocational skills and preferences? And the best research and the best experience that we have found is that we can assess people's vocational skills and preferences best through work-based learning opportunities, internships, and volunteerism that the person has experienced. We encourage you to complete an individual job assessment, which we handed out in our last session, in session 4. And you can complete that by interviewing the person, the family members, and the people that they know best to get that information. Make sure that you provide observations in a variety of community settings to see how that person responds and what the person's preferences are. And remember that we can best identify a person's preferences based on their real life experiences. So let's work and plan how to increase their opportunities for employment and volunteerism, because that track record will help us to better understand what works and what doesn't work when we look at an individual's potential for jobs. So one of the things that we want to ask you right now is, what was your first job and how did you get it? So you can put that, you can type that into chat if you're able to do that. And Lori, I know for the people that we've got, what was your first job and how did you get it? And all this, go ahead.
I know historically we've had people say they worked for a friend's parents' company. Some people have said that they got a job where their friend got a job. Some people have said they got a job at places that they tend to hang out. You know, in Santa Clarita, I think working at Magic Mountain is a rite of passage. So many people from Santa Clarita would say they worked at Magic Mountain as a first job.
And we shared a couple people on this webinar that have spent time in Santa Clarita, and when they were younger, that was one of their first jobs as well.
Somebody got a job at Foster's Freeze, saw that they were hiring, walked in and got the job, applied and got it.
And what we find, with my first job, it was the same thing. I was in a youth group, and one of the adult leaders says, "Hey, we're looking for jobs or for employees in this job area." And I went in along with another young man I knew, and we applied, and we got a job at a drive-through dairy store. And that was one of my first jobs when I was going to college, and worked there through college. But a lot of times it's a connection. It's either a family connection, a friend of a friend, as Lori shared, or if you're going to college or university, they have job boards and they have career counseling. And we recommend that even if you're just taking a PE class at the community college or doing something on campus, if you're enrolled at any campus, use those job boards. Same thing if you're a high school student. Go to your career counselor and find out what's available. Do they have any summer work opportunities? The city of Santa Clarita, for example, has some regional occupational program opportunities during the summer where they offer summer jobs to students in Santa Clarita, students both with and without disabilities, because they're looking for workers from all areas. And if somebody has an interest in one of those areas, then they can try that job for the summer. So I think we've shared this before, but whenever you have an IEP meeting on the school level or an IPP meeting at the regional center level, we encourage you to ask family members, what do they do? Where do they work? Do they have their own business? Do they work somewhere else? Is there a way that we can get a business card? And if we represent a group of people, if we have people that might be interested in something like that, what they do, would they offer a potential tour of the workplace so that people could get a better idea of what kind of duties are performed there? And might they have an opportunity for people to actually to work in those environments? So think about that, because most of the time we get our first jobs by connecting with somebody that we know or other people. It's a lot more rare today that people just walk in and get a job. A lot of times it's through those connections. Okay. All right. Did I hear Chris come in? Chris, are you ready to come in with Ricky? So, or I'm going to introduce you to Chris and Ricky Mack and Chilvers, who supports Chris, and they are going to share Chris's story. How are you, Chris?
Fine.
Well, good. I'm Scott.
Scott.
All right. So what I'm going to do, you guys pick a chair and set yourself up so they can see you.
Oh,
Okay, so look, you see yourself in the camera at the top?
yeah, just like it's a Zoom call.
Just like a Zoom call, yeah. So there are people in the presentation, so when we're ready, we're gonna press the down button, okay? So what are you? You tell us what it says.
There's leveling up and work.
It won't do it with the arrows? Okay, let me see. Show me.
Fingers.
Oh,
Oh, okay, so slide it down. Okay, so tell us about this.
okay. I finished school in 2010. I completed TLC with Heart District in 2010. I wanted to
Oh,
work.
what's TLC?
TLC is Transitional Learning Charter with the Golden Oak Adult School, where the Plus Rita Junior High School. Where
And then what happened?
I wanted to work. Sorry, I wanted to work. I went to Pleasant View Industries in 2010 and became an assembly line worker. I worked on alcohol wipes, antiseptic wipes, bandages, triple antibiotic ointment, and sanitizers. A lot of medical supplies and first aid kits.
Right. Yeah. Swipe it, 2 fingers. There you go. Can you read what's at the top? We need to move it. What does it say?
When I started working, my paycheck helped me pay for annual passes to Universal Studios, Knott's Berry Farm, Six Flags Magic Mountain, and Disneyland. Travel with my mom and pay for Airbnb. I have traveled to places like Minnesota, Hawaii, and even Las Vegas, where I like to play the penny slot machines.
And of all these pictures, which one's your favorite?
Let's see. Oh yeah, Mario Brothers.
You got to meet the Mario brothers. And did you hand them pictures? Are those the pictures you colored? Did you give them
Yeah,
pictures? Is that what happened?
drawing pictures.
You drew the pictures for them?
Yeah.
And you gave them, it looks like they loved them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. You want to swipe it down?
And Snoopy
And Snoopy.
and Minnie Mouse
Oh, everybody. Look at even R2D2.
and
You-
along with C3PO,
I didn't even see him.
Goofy. And I told Goofy at the Goofy's Kitchen, I'm an expert of making those Belgian waffles from the Belgian waffle maker.
Nice.
Oh.
2 fingers? Yeah, 2 fingers. You're good. Oh, sorry. There we go.
In 2019, I was offered an opportunity to go work in my community.
Mhm.
I went to work at Neotech with a paid internship. At Neotech, I was an assembly line worker where I assembled medical products for the little babies to save their lives. Until September 2020, we had to stop working at Neotech. When I worked at Neotech, I was sure I only wanted to work on medical products for the babies.
Mhm. It was hard to leave Neotech.
Yeah, because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah. 2 fingers, swipe it down.
Oops.
No, don't click, just swipe. There you go.
In 2021, I started another internship. Even though I wanted to work on medical products for babies, I tried another internship. I started working at Star Nail International, where I was an assembly line worker, working with the nail polishes, cuticle oils, and nail files. I was such a good worker. They hired me, but in September 2022, I was laid off because of the work shortage at Star Nail. I really liked that job and I wanted to stay, but they did not have enough work for me.
No, two fingers. There you go.
In November 2022, I started a new job. Danae at Pleasant View helped me get a new job at Pacific Lock, also known as Pack Lock. At Pack Lock, I was putting labels on the boxes to ship out to the companies. I am a hard worker and I work efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Two fingers.
I like what I do.
And what are you doing here?
Labeling the boxes of 70mm maximum security disc locks.
And are you working fast or slow?
Fast.
And you're pretty accurate too, huh?
And I'm energetic.
And you're energetic. You can tell that from these pictures. You are very energetic.
Yeah.
And you're wearing the same hoodie.
And my strength.
All right. There we go. Then we're gonna go on to the next person. Okay, so I think we're opening it up to questions. Is that okay if they ask you some questions maybe about your work experience? Because there's people online that are watching and they might have questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Ready.
So we have one question here. How do you like to spend your work earnings?
I have to spend my work earnings.
Yeah, what do you spend your money on?
I'm spending money on like for
What was the slide in here that we talked about? When you started making money, you could pay for what?
pay for annual passes and Christmas shopping and
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood Bowl and Pantages.
Oh, you go to theater too, huh?
Oh yes.
Yes. Yeah, so
Even Airbnb.
Airbnb. Yeah. And getting chicken sandwiches, because I know you love those. Yeah. That's important, huh? You get to spend your money on those.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Hmm.
I don't see any right now.
All right.
No, well, thank you, Chris.
Anytime.
All right. So I think it's Sarah's turn. You want to give up your chair and let Sarah sit here?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Okay, let's get Sarah. Okay. All right, scooch in a little bit more. So you're in the, I'm going to angle this down just a little bit so that they can see you. All right.
All right.
Okay. So this is Sarah's presentation, and this is all about you finding purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finding purpose at work, right? Yeah. All right. And if you want to do the slides, all you have to do is take 2 fingers and swipe it down.
Oh.
Okay. So if you want to do that next time after we do this, you can do it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So this says finishing school.
Thing that do
Uh-huh. When you were at school,
do
where did you go? You
Ti-
went,
D
you went to TLC?
not high down.
Oh, okay. And college, at College of the, and you later College of the
We not
Canyons.
high.
Uh-huh. And so you finished school
And
in
we do 99.
1999. Yeah. All right. You want to do it? 2 finger swipes. 2 fingers? 2. There you go. And so when you started working,
Working.
all of your friends, where did they go?
What the
They went, all of your friends went to Pleasant View.
thing do?
And so where did you want to go? Because your friends were
That's it.
at Pleasant View too.
It ring do.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to go there too.
Yeah.
And so you started work at Pleasant View.
Yeah. Thing do.
Can you read it?
No.
Okay. When you were at Pleasant View, You were paid
Yeah,
by,
pay, money
by how many things you
done.
did every day,
Yeah.
right? And you
I
like
did.
to work hard.
Yeah, I worked hard.
You were a hard worker. And how long did you work at Pleasant View?
18 years.
18 years, right? And what was the best thing you did when you worked at Pleasant View?
Oh, I do sales work.
You did the scales?
Yes.
Yes.
At the art pipe, do the binding, I put a bot.
And put them in the box.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
much I done?
And what about the stapling?
I do definitely too.
And why did they give it to you to
They
do?
want me to do it myself.
Because you did it right.
Because it's right.
Right. And they knew that. So they made sure you got that job.
I got that job.
Right? Okay. All right. You want to swipe it down? Perfect. And this says new opportunities. So you had a new opportunity, right? In 2019.
2019, I worked in workshop.
You left the workshop
And
and you went,
Went.
you were working there.
I wasn't there.
And then we started a new program
Program,
called the Community
community,
Integration
education
Program.
program.
Yeah. And what did we get you? We got you a paid
Pay money.
internship too.
Everything,
We got you an internship?
yeah, you did.
Yeah, okay. And you wanted to try the internship?
Yeah, you did. I did.
Okay. All right. But your dad was kind of worried.
Yeah, yeah, my dad was worried.
How come he was worried? Do you remember?
I worked out to make
That it wouldn't work out?
no worked out. I want to do this one right over here. That date.
Oh, okay. Was he also afraid that they would be mean to you?
No,
The people out in the community?
no.
He was afraid of that
Not bring
a little bit?
measurable.
Okay. But we said, no, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
She'll
it
be
was
great,
Not great.
right?
Right.
Okay, so what was your first internship? The very first one. What did we try you at?
Just it.
No, Packlock.
Backwalk.
Yes. So we tried you at Packlock. Did it work at Packlock?
No working me. I can work doing my I can see nothing I after we are practice I can see.
Yeah, where the little holes and everything, the
Yeah.
little pieces of metal. So
Yeah.
doing the locks was hard.
Hard for me.
It was hard for you to do. And so we said, okay, that's okay,
Not, okay.
right? We're
Yeah.
gonna try something different.
Yeah, different.
Yeah, that's fine. So we tried it something else. You want to swipe it down and then we'll talk about, oh wait, who's that?
That's me right there.
And what were you doing? How come you have that picture? Do you remember?
I only a puppy dog.
You're holding a puppy dog.
My dog.
Yes, and that was when we were volunteering,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We were volunteering at
I am more.
St. Bonnie's,
With bunny, yes.
and you loved walking the dogs, didn't
Yeah.
you? All right, okay, so I had to point that picture out.
Yeah, volunteering is a great pathway.
Yeah, the volunteering helped us kind of get out into the community, huh? It was fun to go get out there. And this is the perfect fit.
Fit.
So you went to,
There it.
now you went to Neotech and you were trying an
Very fun.
internship.
Yeah.
What kinds of things did you do there?
I count to 10 and put it in a box
You put it in the box, you count to
Yeah.
10.
and do a trip. I know how to do it. I know.
You did the clips
But I do trip in the bag.
and you put them in the bag
Bag.
and put them in another bag and you do the ceiling.
Doing.
You run the ceiling machine, right?
Yes.
And were you,
I'm making a faucet note date.
okay.
I do tapping, I do that.
With the machines?
No, not even do, no.
No, just with the bags or with it?
No, I put on tapping.
Oh, okay. Tapping?
Yeah,
Okay. And so then before long, they started asking you to work in their clean room
the green room,
where you had to, what'd you have to put on?
coat,
A coat and a thing on
the
your,
pootie.
you had to do the booties on your shoes
I know I'll have to wear the hairnet.
and a hairnet. But they knew you could do the job. So
Yeah.
they said, here, put this stuff on and go work in that clean room.
That's the green room,
Right?
right.
Because why did they have a clean room? Do you remember?
You have to put a coat on and
And the coat, you put the coat on?
yeah, put the hairnet, the
Because they needed to make
Booties.
sure no germs got on the product.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they'd be really careful, right? Okay, you want to swipe it? Oops. Oh, here, maybe I'm not. Okay, there, do it again. Okay. And it has been how many years?
1 year.
How? No, that's not a one.
No, 4 year.
4 years, yeah.
Next one my 5th year next year.
Next year is your 5th year. So you worked at Neotech for 4 years now,
Yes,
right? And you love it?
I would. I know my way yet.
You know right where it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it is a fun
fun,
place, right?
great.
Because what do they have? They have parties.
You have party, you work,
Sometimes you can wear
doctor,
your costumes.
Halloween.
And Halloween you can wear
Yeah.
costumes. And what else?
Yeah, birthday party. You had a birthday party.
Birthday parties. What about jammy days?
Dummy thing,
And potlucks.
potluck.
And sometimes they bring lunch and
Party.
and
Really
pie? Really?
No, potluck
A potluck?
and Christmas party.
Oh, and a Christmas party.
Yeah.
Nice.
You mean
Okay.
well, you bought it between a donut one a week.
They bring donuts once a week?
Yeah.
Nice.
You mean take something in 1 week.
Okay. Nice. And so, and how is everybody there? How do they treat you?
Make me nice.
They treat you nice. Are they your friends?
Yeah, they're my friend.
I think they are your friends. All right. You want to swipe it down and we'll see some of these pictures of these people.
My boss named Netta.
Okay. So Netta is the
Steve.
one in the picture on the right.
The white.
Right. Yeah. Wearing her
Hunter
hair in a
White.
bun. Okay. And then who is that? Hunter? Who is
That Hunter right there.
that? Okay.
Neil,
Neil
Steve,
and Steve
and me.
and you. Yeah. These are your friends, right? These are your favorite
Yeah,
people.
my red pepper.
At work.
Oh, one thing, Netta had ticket spot out.
Netta had her sister.
Netta had her ticket with there.
Oh, she did. She had her sister working there too.
Yeah,
Still
What?
now.
walked out.
Oh.
Ed with there. I know.
Oh.
there.
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
know. I'm not afraid.
I think we have more work pictures that you shared with me. Do you want to share them with everybody?
Yeah.
All right, swipe it down and let's look at those. Oh, there we go. This is you having some fun.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah. Do you remember
My
what?
ward.
Your award. That was
Yeah,
what, your
that happened.
2-year? I think
Yeah.
that was your 2-year or 3-year
Yeah.
anniversary. And then this is from
Halloween party.
you're wearing a Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Then my whole
The whole team.
the whole team went there.
Yeah, that's them. All right. So I think you want to take some, see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we have the same question for you, Sarah. How do you like to spend your work earnings?
Your paycheck.
My pet did.
How do you like to spend your money?
50.
You what? 50? Oh, today?
Now, now.
So, okay, your
Payday, yes.
paycheck, when you get your paychecks, is there anything you like to spend your money on? Do you like to go on trips?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so tell us a couple of trips that you went on.
I went on a Disneyland 3 night, 3 day.
3 days at Disneyland. That was this
And-
year, right? That was just a
Yeah,
couple
yeah,
months
yeah,
ago.
that was- And this year I'm going on a big trip.
You-
Going to Hawaii.
To where?
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Steve taking me.
Nice. So you're gonna go. So I bet your work money helps pay for some of those
Yeah.
trips.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you like to do that, but then you like to do stuff here. You probably go to the movies and you probably
I
like to
don't
eat out sometimes.
Yeah, going shopping.
Yeah. Go shopping. Yeah. You don't have to pay for clothes because you get cool clothes at work.
Yeah, you.
Because she likes to show off her
Yeah,
new
so I have
shirt,
my
her new jacket
my
she
new
got
jacket.
from work.
And then another question is, do you enjoy having set hours? Some people work at like fast food and they don't even know their schedule until the week beforehand.
And your schedule is set. When do you work?
I work food Monday and Friday.
Monday through Friday from
9 to 1.
9 to 1 all the days.
All
So
the days.
do you like knowing that every day you know that you have to work from 9 to 1
Yeah.
rather than having it change all over the place?
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, there was a time when we had you not working on Fridays, right?
Right.
And when we told you you couldn't work on Fridays,
No.
were you happy about that?
Yeah. No.
You were not happy about
No,
that.
no.
You like to work, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and you wanted to go back, and as soon as we could get you to go back, you went back, right?
I did.
Yeah, because that was tough. Not having
Yeah.
work on Fridays, you were bored.
Yeah, I'm bored.
Yeah,
And then one more, how do you get to work?
good question.
Thyroid, it.
Dial a ride and access.
I use my it card.
She has her access card. Who helps you schedule that?
Tammy. And
Tammy?
me, and Trina.
And you and Trina.
That's
Having...
with Wato.
Okay, so her supports at home will help her schedule that,
You're right. Oh, man, down by.
or on standby.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know that.
Mm-hmm.
My boss knew Tanya, and no,
They know that you.
no,
standby.
down by.
Okay.
And so, since you have the same schedule, Monday through Friday, is it a little easier with Dial-A-Ride because you just tell them to plug it in and
Yeah,
you don't, so
So you don't have to call
No,
you
every.
no.
don't have to call them every day.
You have a set, yeah. So.
Yeah, did.
So that's what's really nice about having the same work schedules. You don't have to call them every day, the day
Yeah, yeah.
before work. You can just plug it in and the only thing you have to do is call them if you're not gonna be at work one day.
Right.
One day yet.
Yeah.
Me a doctor appointment.
Yeah. If you have a doctor's appointment, then you just call them
Time.
and cancel them
Okay. Doctor
the dial that day. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
That was the last question I see. Thank
Perfect.
you. Thanks, Sarah. Enjoy your $50.
I will.
All right. Let's scooch and let's get back in there.
Okay. All right, and we want to give another thanks out to Sarah and Chris for their presentations, and again, giving you some additional perspectives on working and also having that opportunity to have a paid internship that then turned into employment, which is the goal for a paid internship. Again, to provide that experience and also to see if it's a good match. As you see from both of their stories, they both tried different things out until they found a match that was right for them. And as we shared last week, we found that it takes an average of 3 jobs before people can figure out what's really a good match for them on average. Okay. It's not very often that the first job is the perfect job. And Cheryl is coming on board here to talk a little bit about that same thing. to be able to share how, starting out at one job and then how do you transition into something when maybe you get a little bit bored of that job or you want something different. So hello, Cheryl.
Hey,
How are you?
done.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on. We're doing the Zoom thing today from a remote, and Cheryl is on and ready to go. So Lori, I think I'm going to turn it over to you and Cheryl.
Okay, let's let me get my face up where I can see my face because I'm also recording here. Okay. Hi, Cheryl.
Hey.
Okay. So Cheryl's going to read much of her presentation and let me know if she wants me to read some of it for her if her throat gets a little dry. And then I'll also be asking questions in the middle. Wait, Scott, who's flipping the slides? Okay, Scott is. Okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
And this is nice story.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Mayfield, and this is my story.
I was hurt and this I was just
I was hired. Oh, go ahead.
I was they were and it was a nice position.
I was hired as an ombudsman advocate. It was my first paid position.
And the when they
I was on the board for the Human Rights Committee. Sorry.
I was and they feel that that people who are angry from what they they want.
I made sure that the people who I advocated for had what they needed and what they wanted.
They I would say that I would say it was very
I tried my best to advocate, but I felt like it wasn't very effective.
and
I had this job for 20 years. In the end, it was a good experience. I just wanted more. I talked to my supervisor. I said that this was not working. I was on the verge of quitting, but that's not something that I do. Okay, I felt like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was done, but you said something else that I didn't catch. They? They used?
They valued me.
Say it again, Martha.
They valued me.
They valued me. Oh, okay. So you're okay. Can I read the one that I didn't say yet? In between. My supervisor ended up talking to her supervisor. They valued me. They valued me so much that they came up with a new position for me. Now I am an instructor for that same company. I make videos that educate the public on this industry. So what were some of the benefits? I got a raise. I don't have a supervisor telling me what to do. I make my own schedule. I don't have to travel to meetings anymore. My messages can reach a lot more people. When I am no longer here, my videos will be. Thank you for listening. So, Cheryl, you've been at this new position for a little over a year now, right? And it's morphed a little bit. Do you want to talk about your current project? You want me to talk about your current project? Okay. Martha, you can give her a little water maybe too. Cheryl is looking at there's a code of ethics called a credo for support. And Cheryl's taking the credo line by line and really explaining what each line means to her, how it applies to her. And all of her training goes on videos, and then the company puts them on their platform for all employees to watch. And they can also be shared with family members and I'm assuming anybody else who really has access to that platform. So it's a real awesome project to take that credo of support and go line by line through it and talk about how each of those lines either impacts her or somebody she knows. Okay. Anything else you want to share, Cheryl? Not now? All right. Any other questions? How do you like to spend your work earnings, Cheryl?
They're going shopping.
Ah, yes. Yeah, good old standby. All right. Well, thanks. Scott, you're up.
All right. Well, thank you, Cheryl. And Cheryl provides a great, um, I guess a great example of someone that, okay, I've worked in a job for a long time, but I think I want to do something else to make more of a difference. And after 20 years, she actually advocated, and I went to I think that interview with her, and she advocated for herself and said, "Here's I'm really thinking of doing something more like this." And they appreciated all the work that Cheryl had done for that agency in a previous role, and valued her enough to morph that into something different that met both Cheryl's needs and the agency's needs. And now they're doing that. So that gives an example that I think is much more typical now, that many people don't stay at the same job for 30 years or even 20 years like Cheryl. Sometimes they do, but it's also very typical to explore something else and to say, hey, I'd like to make maybe a career change and do something different. And that's okay. And that's something we also learn in supporting folks that have some support needs, is that it's okay for people to say, hey, I'd like to try something different. Because sometimes as professionals, we'll catch ourselves saying, oh no, you've got to stay there. You don't realize how hard it was to help you to find this job or to get you into this situation. And we have to remember that our primary job is listening to people. And that means listening to people and saying, okay, let's explore something then, and let's explore something different. And maybe don't give your notice until you find something else that's going to meet your needs. As we've shared before, it's always easier to find a new job when you have a job. So anyhow, thank you again, Cheryl, for your sharing your experiences. All right. Now let's talk a little bit more about job development and where to start. Okay. All right. So some of the things that we can do for folks is help them to update, to develop and to update their employment resume, their resume of experiences, and use a sample resume as a guide. If you're not sure how to do that, a quick Google search on the internet will help you to find sample resumes. Find one that is simple for you to fill out that you can use. And you want to share both your educational experiences as well as your volunteer experiences and your work experiences. Dan is going to be sharing next. Hello, Dan. Okay. All right. So again, it's important to include your volunteer experience, and if the only education you have is through high school, then just include that. Okay, but it's more important. People want to see what you're doing now. And as we shared in previous videos, employers are a lot more motivated to hire people when they see that you're currently doing something. Even if you don't have a paid job, if you're volunteering and you're active, or if you're taking a couple of classes at a community college, then they're a lot more interested because they know you're busy. if you aren't doing anything and you don't have anything on your resume, then employers are going to be more hesitant to say, yes, we're ready to hire you. Okay. And then next, find out what people want to do. Again, we encourage you to use the job assessment tool that we shared last week, and to help find out what environment or what type of job might be the best fit for someone. It's also important to look at what has worked and what hasn't worked in previous work experiences. Again, both paid and volunteer experiences. What worked and what doesn't work for folks. And again, complete that individual job assessment and a one-page support guide that we shared from the previous session in session 4. And when you develop and update your resume of experience, you want to make sure you include, real simply, your name and contact information. If some people don't like being contacted by phone, if that's the case, make sure you leave an email address, or make sure if they want a phone number. We actually support some people that say, I don't want any phone calls. I don't know if I'd be able to answer correctly, or people might not have a communication system in place to readily answer a phone. So they might ask the job developer to use their phone number. Okay, and sometimes we do that. That might be an accommodation that some people need. But at a minimum, they need at least an email address for folks. Okay, list again your education, current and past, volunteer experiences that you either currently have or that you've had in the past. Include any work history that you have. And again, we encourage that people have opportunities for real work-based learning experiences during high school and throughout their transition years. It's not something that you should wait until later. Same thing with volunteering. Find out ways for people at home and with their place of worship, or other places in the community, or youth groups like Scouts or DMLA, or other things like that. Opportunities for people to volunteer in their local communities for philanthropic projects and other things, because those look really good in a resume. And you can work on these things while you're a teenager. List any skills and hobbies you have, things that might be relevant to the place that you're applying for. And if you have any employment objectives, if you want to work, I'm looking for full-time work, or I'm looking for part-time work. I'm looking to be able to use my skills in this area. Make sure if you include things like that, try to make sure that it is relevant to the place that you're applying for. And it's okay to modify your resume based on which place you are applying for. And then if you do include references, or if they ask you to provide some references would include people that are going to say good things about you. So that could include, it could include people that know you, could include family, friends. In a good situation, it would include somebody that might have supervised you or worked with you in either a previous volunteer or paid work experience. And again, somebody that's going to say good things about you. Another thing that we work on a lot is we look in the area of job carving. And that's something that we do for people that maybe can't do all the elements of the job or all the duties in the job description, but we try to carve out something, even carving out a part-time situation from a full-time situation. Other job development tips include talking to friends, family members, and others to get business contacts and job leads. Start by asking for a tour of their business or work site so that you can see what the job duties are and what the workplace is like. Again, people that we support may not be able to perform all of the job duties in a job, but they can certainly do some of those duties. And we look to carve out a part-time job from these. So look at job descriptions to carve out which parts of a job the person can do, and then approach the employer to see if it might be a good fit and to see if they would be willing to hire people part-time. Many jobs now require you to submit your initial application online. Some people are going to need some additional support in order to do this. So be prepared. When we talk to employers, when we talk about hiring folks with disabilities and what accommodations they might need, and sometimes we find that if all we do is just submit applications online, or people that we support said, wow, I've applied to this place and this place and this place online, and I never hear back from them. And that is an area of concern. What we found really helps is meeting up with their HR department in advance and talking to them and saying, look, I've got somebody that I think would be a good fit. Here's what they can do, or here's the area of the job or the job that we think would be a good fit. We want to find out, is there a way that you can earmark their application, knowing that that person might have some additional support through our agency, maybe as a job coach, or a way to provide some initial on-the-job training or support on the job. But we let them know that, and we make connection with that HR representative in advance, so that to find out if there is any potential barrier. And the folks that we speak to in HR say, please contact us directly to let us know so that we can look for those applications. Otherwise, they may get so many applications, and if it doesn't stand out, and if they don't know that the additional accommodations and supports might be available through either supported employment or through a regional center-based work program or day program like we provide, then they're not always going to catch that. Okay, so ask your coach or family member to assist you with that online application if needed. Have your resume of experience ready so that you can copy the important information, like the dates that you worked at different places, onto your online application. And then be sure that you follow up after submitting your online application. Stop by within a week and try to talk to those HR people and find out if they received it. Okay. And what employers let us know is that they really appreciate that follow through. Practice your interviewing skills. Plan and rehearse the things that the person that you'll be supporting, or if that's you, practice what you're going to be saying in that job interview process. Ask somebody else that might be an employer or a supervisor in a workplace or your job support or even a family member, practice an interview and ask things that they might hear in an interview, such as, you want to go get a drink of water? Okay. Nope. Okay. Yeah, I guess they're real tired, I guess, today, huh? A little tired? It's okay. All right. So again, plan and rehearse the things that you'll be sharing in an interview. And a lot of times in an interview, people are going to ask, do you want full-time or part-time? Are you okay working on weekends? So try to prep people for that. A lot of times people will ask, what jobs have you had in the past? Why do you want to work here? What are the hours and days you're available to work? Do you have any references? And make sure you have a nice outfit to wear to the job interview. Remember, those first impressions are really important. So how you look at a job interview, your appearance will say a lot. It's also important, even when you're just going to apply or pick up an application, dress nice then, because whether you realize it or not, people are going to notice what you look like when you come in just to pick up an application. One thing we also share is that if you have a coach with you or a support staff with you or a family member, whoever's supporting you, if somebody's supporting you to go in and get an application, we want to make sure they look good too. Because if you've got somebody coming in with cut off jeans and looking like a slob, and that's not what the company wants to see, we've sometimes had people turned down based on the person that comes in with them. So realize that if you're a coach, we let our coaches know, hey, I know you just went to the gym with the person and you did swimming. Then if you're not dressed well, it might not be a good day to go pick up that application. Why don't you wait until you're both looking good? Okay. Or maybe go before you go swimming when you're dressed a little nicer. Again, don't wear shorts or sloppy clothes. Remember that those first impressions are important. Another resource is to help people search for jobs at their local Employment Development Department office, the EDD office, or the Workforce Center. And they're in local communities in the city of Santa Clarita, for example, that happens to be based out of College of the Canyons. And the EDD offices and workforce centers have computers there that you can use, as well as at your local library. You can search for jobs by job type and by the geographical area to see what jobs are currently available and to see if that might be something, or if there's jobs that might be interesting to you. Identify any assistive technology or visual aids or communication devices that students can use for their interviews to promote success. For example, if you need someone to come in with you as an accommodation, or if you need to have it use a device like Dan does to help share pictures for his interviews, then let them know in advance and say, hey, we just want to let you know we're going to bring in a little slideshow that the person can use to share their work experiences through the interview. So things to make sure that you have an answer for and to identify before the interview. Be prepared to be able to share how many days do you want to work. If you say, I don't know, that's probably not a good thing. Do you want to work a couple days a week? Or do you want to, like Sarah, do you want to work 5 days a week? Okay, but what would be good for you? And decide that with you, your team, your family before you go to the interview. How many hours a day are you able to work, or are you willing to work? Are you able to start at? How many hours per week is your goal? Are you willing to work mornings, nights, evenings? Will you have a job coach, or do you need a job coach? Is that something, is a coach someone that you'll be bringing with you? Okay. Have you looked at the company website to find out more about what they do? That's one of the questions that our agency asked potential employees. What did you think of our website? What do you know about us? Because if you come in saying, well, I looked at your website and I really like the way you're doing this, or I have a question based on your website about what you do. That's also something that really interests employers and really lets them know that you're interested in what they do. So again, it's helpful to bring some questions about the company to the interview to show your interest. And do you know what position you'll be applying for? Okay, hopefully you do. Another thing to prepare for the interview is you need to think about, are you willing to share your disability? Some people do not have a noticeable disability. It may be a learning disability. It may be someone that's on the spectrum. You have to decide during the interview, are you willing to share your disability, especially if you need any type of accommodations. For example, having a coach to assist with certain parts of the job or certain times on the job, things like that. Some people do not want to share that they have a disability, and that's your choice. But if you do not share that you have a disability, then you're not entitled to any specific accommodations on the job due to your disability, including a job coach. If you are willing to share that you have a disability, then you are entitled to reasonable accommodations as specified in the Americans with Disabilities Act. And again, accommodations are accommodations perhaps due to communication and things like that, having a coach. It doesn't mean that you are able to do less. You still have to do the same job, complete the same amount of work as any other worker on that job. It's just that you might need some reasonable accommodations in order to do that. And it could be accommodations in seating or standing or mobility of getting around the location to be able to do that job. At the interview, will you need to have someone attend with you, or will you have someone attending with you? And that's usually a coach, a job developer, etc. Okay. If so, let them know. That would be a reasonable accommodation. And you would then be sharing that you have a disability, which is fine. Will you be sharing information about yourself through other types of accommodations, like sharing slides on a tablet or a device that you bring with you? If so, are you prepared to do that? Share what your strengths are and share or show them what you can do. Again, dress nice, smell nice, and look nice, and smile. That's always helpful. As we shared earlier, it's easier to find a job when you already have a job. Try not to quit a job that you don't like until after you find another job. Always try to give a 2-week notice before you quit so that they will give you a good recommendation. For families and coaches, the most important coaching often occurs before the job. For example, with preparation for the job, getting ready, going over expectations, etc. And after the job, providing feedback when the job is over. If and when coaching is needed on the job, try to ensure that it's not intrusive. So if you're the coach or the support, try not to intervene and jump in to fix everything, because then the supervisors and coworkers are going to think that, oh, that's your job to intervene. Because what we found is that if we want to encourage the natural support from coworkers and supervisors to be available before a coach jumps in. Okay, our job is more to let the coworkers know how to best communicate and provide feedback to the individual we're supporting, because we don't want that employment site or business to be dependent on the coach to provide that support. We want that support to occur more naturally between the coworkers and the supervisor and the worker. We have to realize that we're more of an artificial support that's in there. We're an accommodation, but we don't want them to be completely reliant on us just because they know us better. We find that people will last longer on the job when they develop that relationship, that coworker relationship with their coworkers and supervisors, and where it's natural for them to get that support as needed from their coaches and the supervisor. We ask the coworkers and the supervisors to let us know as an agency or the coaching staff when they need our expertise to say, hey, it's not working out, or maybe we're not providing support in a way that the person is progressing. So what can we do? And maybe we need you to step in. That's where we step in. but don't jump in so quick that you're prohibiting some of those natural supports from taking place. And also if we're really intrusive and we jump in too quickly with our job support, again, it can become very intrusive and lead to embarrassment and even behavioral challenges on the job as people get very defensive when we jump in. And it's because it's embarrassing when we go in and try to correct someone. So if the correction can wait until later and we can give that feedback on a break or after the job, that's preferable if at all possible. If it's not something that we really feel we have to jump in and provide some coaching feedback or, maybe even a corrective feedback on in order to prevent something bad from happening on the job. So one of the tools that you received today, as just one of the handouts, is a job development checklist. And we're just going to briefly share that, but you all should have received a copy of that. If not, let us know and we will get one to you. So we found this to be helpful, this job development checklist, because it gives some responsibility to the worker, him or herself, and whoever their supports are. And we want them to assist with that job development and go out and canvass their local communities, places that they'll be able to get to and from. Could be places in their local neighborhood if they need to be able to walk or bicycle or otherwise get there on their own. Or with some people, it might be 1 or 2 bus routes from their home, or like Sarah shared earlier, it could be someone that uses access services. So we just need to make sure that the places where people are looking for jobs are accessible to them, a place they can get to during the business hours. Sometimes with access services, if you rely on that in different areas, access services may not run as early or as late as some places of business. So you may not be able to use access services successfully, for example, in the city of Santa Clarita, if your job ends at 10:30 or 11 at night, or if you have to be there, let's say, before 7 a.m. in the morning. Okay. So you need to check and make sure that whatever job and those job hours are, you need to make sure that it's accessible, that you're looking for a place that you know you can get to successfully during those work hours. Okay. So when you check it out, you want to write down what's the employer or the business, who's the contact that you made if you went in there, who's the manager if you found that out. Have you checked their website out? What did you think? Was there a person to contact that you found, and what was their title? What's the address in the city? What's the job title that you're looking at or that you're interested in? Based on your observations when you visited or looking at, asking coworkers or others what they do, what are the job duties that are involved? Was it a paid or volunteer site? What's the hourly wage? Are there other benefits associated with that job, like vacation, or sometimes if you work at a movie theater, they might give you access to go to a free movie every week, something like that. What are the other benefits involved? What are the work days or hours that are available or that you're interested in applying for? And again, was the job indoors or outdoors, noisy or quiet? You get to move around. When you were there, did you experience nice people? Or were they mean? Is that a place you might want to work? What did the person like about the job? And what didn't they like during their visit? Again, how would they get there? And are there any additional supports that might be needed if they got that job? And what we do for somebody that's interested in work, but maybe they don't have a job right now, is we encourage them to get out in the community and look at a lot of different places. And even if they write on there, this was a yucky job, I wouldn't want to do this. That's good information. Make sure you have that on file. That will help people that are assisting you with your job development to be able to understand what you want and what you don't want in a job. It'll help your family and coaches and others have a better understanding of what to look for. So this job development and the checklist, you can get people to go out with their coaches, with their staff, whether even if it's at a school site, check things out, go try to canvass the community and check some potential job sites out and bring these back. And it's good information to have in the grand scheme of sort of job development. Other things to understand are some of the labor laws. So in some of the labor laws, we want to make sure that you know that we can't volunteer, we can't work for free at for-profit businesses where you're doing the same things that other workers are getting paid for. So for example, if you might say, wow, I don't really have good production right now, but I want to volunteer to get my work production up. That doesn't mean you can go to Walmart and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer while I practice my skills. Department of Labor will not allow that. Okay, we can only volunteer at places like that are also nonprofits, places like hospitals, the Red Cross, sometimes places of worship, the Salvation Army, places that have volunteer opportunities where you would be performing duties that other volunteers are also doing. You should be paid minimum wage or better and similar pay to what other coworkers are getting paid for doing the same work, along with the same benefits. Know in advance if you want to be hired directly by the company into, again, what we've called competitive integrated employment, or CIE, or if there's an option to discuss a paid internship through the paid internship program, or PIP. If there is a paid internship option, be sure to have information as to what agency will pay or reimburse that wage. And now, are you ready?
Yes,
All right. So who are you?
Dan and Eric.
Well, that's Dan and Eric. So you are Dan Heldorn, right?
Right.
All right. So Dan's going to share a little bit about some interviews that he's had and some accommodations that have assisted him in employment. So where do you live right now?
Hasnik.
And who do you live with?
Eric.
And Eric's your roommate. All right. Where'd you go to school when you were a kid?
Locrance.
Went to Locrance. Now, Locrance was a special education center, and I believe still is. So Dan did not have the opportunity in elementary school to attend school with typical kids in the general education. Only people with significant disabilities, with developmental disabilities, attended Locrance. So he attended Locrance Special Ed Center through LAUSD during elementary school. And Dan is a great modeler. He tends to model behaviors based on who he's around. So he learned a lot about autism since he was in an autism class and mimicked a lot of those behaviors, but he didn't have a lot of language or communication through elementary school. He only had a few words, although he could reproduce sounds very well. So where did you go next for middle school?
Mulholland Middle School.
So you went to Mulholland Middle School, and this is when you graduated from there. So he had some advocacy through his mom and dad. And when it turned time for the IEP for you to have at the end of Locrance, at the end of 6th grade, basically mom and dad said, we've just got one goal, and that goal is for Dan to be educated with typical peers. We want him in more of an inclusive environment. We think that he would learn more there. And that was a little controversial at that time, but the school had to do it. and mom had already checked around some other campuses that had some openings, and one of them was Mulholland Middle School. And he still received some special ed services, but was able to be mainstreamed in several classes and was on a campus with typical kids. And his language blossomed, right? And you loved your music classes.
Yes.
So where was your first apartment? Because you moved out when you were 19. Where was your first apartment, Dan?
Canyon Country.
In Canyon Country. All right. And he moved out at age 19. And Dan paid his share of the rent and utilities with a roommate that didn't have a disability, but they shared the apartment together, actually moved out with Chris and Min, a couple, right?
Right.
He's had a 2-bedroom apartment. And since you were 19, you transitioned into another transition services in Santa Clarita. And where did you go to school then?
Calls in the Canyons.
College of the Canyons. So from age 19 to 22, you received transition services through the Hart School District and had a homeroom class actually based on the campus at College of the Canyons. And the services you received there included both on and off campus work experiences and community-based instruction. So he learned how to take the bus and go on the bus to places with some of his peers in the class and to get some of that valued work experience. So what were some of the classes you've taken at College of the Canyons?
Swimming class at CLC. And soccer class. Oh.
And where was your first job?
Gosh.
At Osh. So you started your first job at Osh when you turned 21. And Avenues, we helped him to get the job during his last semester at school as he was transitioning to life after school. And you worked at Osh for a couple of years, but it was very part-time, just a few hours a week, almost like a token job. They didn't really look at increasing his hours. Dan had a job coach with him. And when a new place opened up very close to that, Lowe's, we helped Dan to apply over there. But Dan doesn't have a lot of language, and we knew that if he was asked a lot of questions, he probably wouldn't do so well. So what we did is we put together a slideshow of some of the things that he did at Osh so that Dan could talk about those things and show his competencies instead of maybe showing what he's not good at. So I'm going to share a little bit about what we shared so that Dan can show you how his interview went. So what kind of things did you do at Osh, Dan?
Wait the floor.
Okay.
Dust the bloaters.
Dust the blower.
That's with the lawnmower. I water plants at Lowe's.
Watering the plants at Lowe's. And so he got the job and he actually got a raise before he even started because he had this other work experience. So they hired him at a little higher level. Dan continued to have a job coach with him at Lowe's.
I watering the plants at Lowe's.
Watering the plants. And he worked there for 5 years, right? So he had some knee problems. And his accommodation, he had a coach that when somebody came up to ask Dan a question, Dan would point at the coach to the point the coach would help to share what information they needed, and him and Dan would go show him where the product was or what they needed, or take him to somebody that could assist them. And he'd help people load things in the car.
Break time at Lowe's.
And that was your fun time for sure, right?
Right.
What are some other jobs you've had?
I work in the pumpkin patch.
What did you do at the pumpkin patch?
Put the hammer.
And what did you do to the hammer? You blow it up with the air, the
Yeah.
air compressor? And you also volunteer at a lot of places, right?
Yes.
What else do you do every day when you're not working?
The gym.
You like to go to the gym?
Mm. Oh, no. I love go to church.
You love to go to church, you go every week. So again, that gives just a little experience of how accommodations can really be helpful for people, especially in the interview process, when maybe we know they're not going to be very spontaneous in their answers. And even though we scripted out exactly what we wanted to share, that really impressed his employers at Lowe's and at other places. Because we have to script it out for Dan so he has a good understanding of what you're going to share so he can share about his competencies instead of sharing about things that he's not good at. Okay. Well, thanks, Dan. All right. You go sit and see Lori. We'll see you later.
See you later.
All right. So to finish up, when we talk about promoting successful career opportunities for people, these are some things we really want to look at that can help promote that success. How are people, including families and self-advocates, involved in identifying and finding their potential jobs? Again, ask families and friends for their business contacts, job connections, and resources. Even if those resources might not be appropriate for their son or daughter or family member, they could assist other people that you may represent. And the more family contacts you have that are employers or businesses, the more opportunities that you might have for students or other people you support. Second, what services and community supports are available to people after work? And this could be things related to recreation, education, taking a vocational class or a college class. And when people get part-time jobs, part of our job, especially if we're a community integration program or supporting people during the day through regional center funded services, we need to find out what else they can do to fill their days. Okay. Even if people are in supported employment, we can get people great jobs where they're making great money, but maybe they're only working 3 days a week. And that means they've got at least 2 more days that they're going to be bored, like Sarah said. Okay, what else can they be doing during those 2 days? Because if that person lives with a family member that they need to go to work every day and they don't have anybody to assist their family member on those 2 days off, then that job might not work for them, even though it will greatly increase their quality of life. So we want to make sure that they have other things that are regional center funded that can fill in those other 2 days. Okay. If a person lives in a residential home, like a group home, it doesn't work when we say, oh, the person's just going to be home 2 days a week while they're working 3 days a week. Okay. They're going to say, hey, that doesn't work out for us. We don't necessarily get any additional funding for that. So what's going to happen to the person during those hours or during those days? So we want to make sure that there's other regional center funded services that assist to fill in the gaps. And if we use a real person-centered plan and a person-centered orientation, like we talk about through the regional center, et cetera, then we want to look at for each person, what other things can they do? When people get part-time jobs, again, could it mean that, okay, we need to make sure that they're going to the gym on their days off or their time off if they're working part-time during the day? Can they take a college class or two, even if it's a PE class or a bowling class or other thing like that? Could it be that they can volunteer on their days off if they don't have other paid opportunities? Or, like we heard last week, could it be that somebody has multiple jobs and they work different jobs on different days? That's okay too. But we want to make sure people have a full week of meaningful days where they're doing things. The regional center, by the way, has just been able this year to start funding social recreation that may include a gym membership for people that attend a gym. And again, as people exit school funded services, many people used to get physical therapy or OT in the school system. But in the adult services, we don't generally have funding for that. So if people need some range of motion exercises, things that they might have typically gotten, like physical therapy at the school site, they can now get that at a gym or by taking a fitness class at their local community college. So we want to help figure out if the person needs support, might need a coach or a support staff during the day to assist them with that. We want to make sure that there's a way that the person can have access to regional center funded services that can help accommodate that outside of those work hours. And again, for number 3, find out what has and hasn't worked from previous experiences the person has had through work. That will help us with our future job search. And again, one of the themes that we found to be really important, we've talked about it already, is how will having a job make a significant difference in the person's quality of life? You've heard from all of our presenters today how having a job does make a difference in their quality of life. And one of the questions that was asked was, what do you do with your paycheck? That's one big indicator of, okay, having a paycheck should enable the person to have a better quality of life because they've got more spending power. And it's important to make sure that the person is able to use that money and have a plan to maybe save up for things they want, or to use it even on a regular basis for things that they can access, whether it's just having a working girls' lunch like we've shared for a few people, that when they work, that means they can go out to lunch that day because they've got some extra money in their pocket. Again, make sure the person is able to notice a significant difference in their spending habits and or to be able to save for something they want as a result of having that paycheck. And then last, remember that entry-level jobs are just the first step in a person's career. Help the person to think about career goals and opportunities 5 and even 10 years down the road. Find out if they need more experience to get to those things or more educational opportunities, but help people to have that plan. People don't generally stay at an entry-level position for 20 or 30 years. Some people do if it's a good fit and if they really enjoy what they're doing. But other people might want to switch, want to change things around, or move up and get a higher paid or more of a higher status job. And Jareth, if you remember his presentations, is a good example of that. A couple other resources we wanted to share, if you don't know already, is that the Association of Regional Center Agencies, ARCA, and DDS are offering a training stipend of $625 per video training for direct support professionals to watch 2 videos. For direct support professionals to be eligible, they have to meet the following qualifications. You have to work as a paid direct support professional, providing direct support an average of 10 hours or more per week. Okay. And this has to be for the regional center funded agency, not IHSS. There are some additional incentives now available through IHSS. for incentives that also involve some training. For the ARCA and DDS incentive, you need to spend at least 50% of your work hours doing direct support work. So not just sitting behind a desk, but actually providing direct support. And you have to be employed by a regional center vendor. For example, Avenue Supported Living Services were vendored, or by a participant who is in the self-determination program. If you meet those qualifications, then you can go to this link, take a picture of this slide, okay, and you can watch those videos and it'll share what to do and how you can get reimbursed for that. Because you will be reimbursed, or not just reimbursed, you'll be paid that incentive through the vendored agency that you work for as a direct support professional. You'll need to register with your email address and create a password for yourself. And you'll need to answer which regional center which catchment area you work in. For example, the area that Avenue Supported Living provides services in is the North LA County Regional Center area. So our staff know and have been directed that let them know you work in the North LA County Regional Center catchment area. You will also be asked for your agency's vendor number. So ask one of the directors or HR people or powers that be in your agency, what's the vendor number for our agency? And then watch the videos to get your certificates so that you can receive those incentives. Another resource available is the self-paced ACRE, A-C-R-E, Basic Employment Services Training. This training also offers incentives to coaches and direct support professionals and to agencies. Sessions are currently sold out, but more are coming. And you can either access this through the Department of Developmental Services link, or Integrated Resources Institute has been providing some trainings as well. And if you take a picture of this slide, you can use this website to access some of those trainings. These trainings are more in depth. It requires at least 40 hours of some ongoing field work that you're going to be doing related to employment for people that you support. So it gives you some homework and some things to work on. But at the end, the incentive is a good one financially. So you can check it out. We encourage you to check those out. And then, as we've shared at each webinar, if you are a consumer or family member or agency that provides support in the North LA County area, or if you receive support through the North LA County Regional Center, then if you would like additional consultation at no cost to you and at no extra cost to the Regional Center, please contact us at cieinfo@avenuessls.org. And we will set up some times to meet with you in person or on Zoom, and we'll help you to use some person-centered planning to figure out what services you get, what services might be the best match for you to be able to access employment. And also, if you just want support related to developing IPP or IEP goals that will lead to better employment outcomes, we've talked about that during these webinars as well, and we can assist you with that. So whether you're a youth or an adult or a family member or an agency, if you feel that some additional consulting would be helpful, give us an email and we will follow up and connect with you, because that is a service that is being provided and funded through the grant through Department of Developmental Services. So again, no purchase of service needs to be done through the Regional Center. It's no cost to you. We are not looking to get any CIE payment at all. What we want to do is try to get agencies that are supporting you to be able to have access to these payments and to have more success in helping people to achieve outcomes in competitive integrated employment or the paid internship program. And to view, since this is our last video, our last webinar, we won't have any more webinars, but recordings of webinars that have been translated in Spanish, Farsi, and Armenian are already edited and ready to view, and you can use the link on our website at www.avenuessls.org. Okay, so those are ready to view. We are still working after today. We still need to edit our English videos along with ASL interpretation. And we will have all those 5 ready. We're hoping within the next couple weeks. And you will also have access to those. So if there were some webinars in this series that you missed out on, that you didn't get an opportunity to view, or if you know of other families, individuals, or agencies that you feel would benefit from this training, then they can sign up through our website and they can view the videos, because we want to make sure that they're available and accessible to people. And again, if you have any questions for us or any questions regarding any of these webinars, you can submit your questions by email to cieinfo@avenuessls.org. And we want to thank Maureen and Kim for their interpretation services today. And Lori, do you have anything else before we end?
No, it's been a quiet group tonight. Thank everybody for attending all 5 weeks, which some of you did. And yeah, give us a call if you need any sort of answers or assistance in the process of getting employment or volunteer work for yourself, somebody you support, or a family member.
All right, then we are going to stop sharing and stop the recording. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, Maureen and Kim, you guys good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott and
Thank
Lori,
you.
right?
Bye-bye.
All right.
I had sent a message in the email. I don't know whether you guys got it.
I did. I got it, and
Okay,
we just
okay.
had a crazy week. But I think you sent it
No
2
worries,
weeks
no
ago.
worries. I wanted to make sure that you got it. It's okay. You
I
can-
did.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So Scott, that she definitely wants some help with her son.
Oh, awesome. And where do you, I think you're one
Yeah,
of the
I,
people
I
on.
got the email. They're in North LA. So
Okay, so you're in North LA. Great. What city?
Here in Stevenson Ranch.
Oh, okay. So you're in Santa Clarita. Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be very soon. I just wanted to, yeah. You can maybe after all the sessions, maybe one day.
We're good. So and how old is your son?
He's 25.
25. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So out of school, and does he receive any services
Oh,
now?
no. The thing is that he's working, but I wanted to discuss with you guys something else, yeah. So.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
We'll contact you with the information you gave.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jesse.
Bye-bye. Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, Lori, signing off.
all right. Bye.